Now to a quote about what happened in Wisconsin. Take a look at your screen. If we really want to unite in response to this national tragedy, we need to know whom we are embracing. For many, this means learning about Sikh Americans for the first time. Those are the words of my next guest, Valarie Kaur. She produced a documentary about the persecution of Sikhs in America after the 9/11 attacks. And here is a clip from Divided We Fall.
This guy came up to me. He's like, you know, you're a cute terrorist.
We're the bad people. We're the people who committed this horrendous act.
Some people say I'm from Afghanistan and I'm Bin Laden's son.
I can put a face to what hate really means.
Can I be as free or as open as I want to be?
You're afraid to leave your own home.
Inequality, injustice, intolerance.
Terrorists go back to your country.
Hatred. I was scared.
It's kind of paranoid.
You're guilty unless you're proven innocent.
Everyone in this country did turban equals terrorist.
That documentary was released in 2006, but obviously the words relevant today. Valarie, thank you for joining us from New York. I want to hear, first of all, about your reaction. What went through your mind when you first got word about the shooting?
Let me just say that this is a deeply tragic time for Sikh Americans and for all Americans. For me, as someone who has documented the struggles of my community for more than a decade, I was struck with deep sadness, with deep grief. But within minutes, I became heartened by this groundswell of love and support that flowed into my inbox. My phone was ringing off the hook. I mean, people from all corners of life were sending in their messages of support and love, and it was incredibly heartening. You know, I want to say that the news is reverberating through every Sikh American household. When I saw the television screen, that is my Gurdwara. Those are my aunts and uncles, my brothers and sisters, our children caught in the gunfire. And so no matter what the motive ends up being, we still don't know. But right now, every expression of support, every candle lit, every prayer, every story, every message is being deeply felt, not just by the Sikhs in Milwaukee, but across the country.
You started working on this documentary, as you mentioned, more than a decade ago, shortly after the 9/11 attacks, and it was released in 2006. I'm curious to know, you know, such a huge project to undertake. What was it that inspired you to do this?
I was a 20-year-old college kid when 9/11 happened. My grandfather had traveled by steamship to California, settled in the U.S. 100 years ago, so I felt deep roots as an American. But I also had fallen in love with the tenets of my Sikh faith, this idea of the oneness of God, this commitment to equality between all people, between all men and women, this commitment to service, that in order to realize God, we must serve others. And yet, in one instant, on 9/11, my family, my community suddenly became automatically suspect, perpetually foreign, and potentially terrorist in the eyes of our neighbors. On September 15th, the first person killed in an anti-Muslim hate crime was Balbir Singh Sodhi, a man my family knew. So it was as if an uncle had been murdered. And my response was simple. I had to do something. I left college, I grabbed my camera, and I crisscrossed the country capturing stories that weren't making the evening news. That journey became Divided We Fall, and I'm very sad to say that what's happening in Milwaukee seems as though it is just the latest chapter of an ongoing struggle of my community to be seen as fellow Americans.
You know what has struck me in the hours since the shooting is hearing from so many Sikh Americans and talking about how they constantly lived in fear of this happening to them, and
Yes.
This is sort of their fear realized. Is that something that you can relate to?
Yes, it's our worst nightmare realized. You know, in a culture of gun violence, in a time when the economy is poor and people are upset, and during an election season where some people have learned how to profit from spewing anti-Muslim ideologies, this has created a climate where many of us were bracing, we're fearing the rise of hate violence this year. And so while we are devastated and saddened, unfortunately, I'm not terribly surprised. I am moved, deeply moved, that the entire nation is looking to the Sikh community right now. I think this is an unprecedented opportunity for people to reach out to their neighbors in bold new ways, to stand up for one another, to stand up for what it means to be American to one another. And this is why we are collecting messages of love and support and solidarity. If you send your messages to groundswell-movement.com, I'll be taking them in person and delivering them to the families in Milwaukee in just a few days.
Oh, I think that's incredible. Wow. Valarie Kaur, we thank you for your thoughts as a Sikh American, as someone who has documented Sikh Americans and their struggles and all of their successes. We thank you again for joining us at this terrible time.
I so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.